Talk Live. This is the live Sunday edition, and you are listening to us here on Free Talk Live. We've got a special guest with us. His name is Mark Skousen. He is the founder and creator of Freedom Fest. Now, Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented event that goes on in the world. It happens in Vegas. I believe it's going on in July, and we're going to find out more about it. But Mark Skousen has a distinction of being not just the creator of Freedom Fest, but also a big name in the liberty movement for a very long time. He's an economist and has a lot to say. So, Mark, can you hear me now?
I can hear you just fine. How about you?
Excellent. I gotcha. So tell me about Freedom Fest real quick. Can you hear me now?
Well, we've been doing this for about a dozen years, since 2007. And we have a couple thousand people, wealthy investors, concerned citizens, professors, authors, political thinkers, politicians, of all stripes who come to Freedom Fest to network, to debate, to socialize, to celebrate liberty or what's left of liberty. And we've crossed the gambit in terms of people. We've had Paul Krugman come, yep, as well as Donald J. Trump himself. So We've had a lot of really interesting characters at Freedom Fest, and we will again this year.
Those are my two best Freedom Fest stories. So on one hand, my favorite event in the several times that I've been to Freedom Fest, I haven't been every year, but I've been several times, was to see Steve Moore of, I think he's from Freedom Works now, but I think at the time he was working with Heritage Foundation. I could be wrong. You might be able to correct me.
Yeah, no, he's back at Heritage now. And as a matter of fact, President Trump just asked for him to, or appointed him. He has to go through the process to a member of the Federal Reserve to take on Powell and the Federal Reserve and their penchant for raising rates. And so that's going to be a real interesting discussion. But yes, Steve Moore is now with the Heritage Foundation, but will soon be working for the Federal Reserve.
One of the greatest living economists right now. Steve Moore's an incredibly hard worker, brilliant man. I got to see him debate Paul Krugman on the stage. Now, I thought that Krugman's willingness to come to this event was just it showed incredible bravery. How did you manage to get Paul Krugman to come to Freedom Fest?
Well, as a matter of fact, I massaged our relationship for 8 years before he finally agreed, and even then I had to pay a full price for his honorarium. But I was still very pleased that he was willing to come, and I was also pleased with the audience that treated him with respect. They didn't do a lot of catcalls and throw things and tomatoes and stuff like that. I thought he was very well received, and they had some really good debating topics. I was the moderator of that debate.
Yep.
And it was a real highlight in 2015. That's the same year that Donald Trump showed up, Glenn Beck, Senator Marco Rubio, Mike Lee. It was Peter Thiel, the billionaire, John Mackey, Steve Forbes. I mean, that was really quite a highlight. We had over 2,500 people that show. And I think we'll hit a record 2,500 or more this year with our Wild West theme.
So what is this Wild West theme? Tell me about it.
Well, you know, for a long time, I think the West has represented the American ethos, go West, young man, and is what Horace Greeley said, because the West represented freedom, it represented independence, it represented laissez-faire, limited government. So we thought, I've been trying to, every year we have a theme. One year our theme was, are we Rome? Another theme was, are we headed for another French Revolution? We've had lots of different themes. The American Dream was a theme a few years ago. So this year I thought, why not do the Wild West? And so we're going to do a lot of Wild West type of themes, and our big libertarian duel in the sun, if you will, that will take place on Thursday, July 18th at the Paris Resort in Las Vegas, will be our big debate between John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Foods Markets, and Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame.
Oh, really?
And their debate will be, what is the purpose of business? And, of course, Mackey has argued for some time his conscious capitalism model that business has a higher purpose than just making money. It's the true, the beautiful, the heroic, the good. While Kevin O'Leary is kind of a Randian, Ayn Rand, it's all about the money. It's only about the money, and if you want a friend, buy a dog, is what he said. So this is going to be conscious capitalism versus obscene greed, if you will. And I think it'll be a really fun debate. And, one thing that's really cool about Freedom Fest that's
Well,
different.
before you go on about Freedom Fest, I want to comment on the debate between Peter Thiel and John Mackey back, I think it was 2015, about, I think it was the market makers versus monopolies or something like that. As much of a fan as I am of Peter Thiel, and I am a big fan of the work that he has done, I felt like Mackey took that one. And Mackey has a heck of a presence on a stage. What's he doing these days now that he's not doing Whole Foods anymore?
Well, I teach at Chapman University, and I'm teaching a course called Libertarian CEO. So I've been in contact with John, who's a longtime friend and co-ambassador to Freedom Fest. He's there all 3 days. And he's still the CEO of Whole Foods. Whole Foods is now owned by Amazon, and he thinks Jeff Bezos is a genius and has done a lot of things to improve Whole Foods, to make it more profitable. So we think it's beneficial, but that's a good question to ask Mackey when he comes to Freedom Fest. And like I was saying,
when can I get an interview with him, Mark? That's the problem. I've chased that guy down for years and years, and he's really hard to nail down. What I need is a really powerful guy by the last name of Skousen to talk to him for me, and then I could get an interview.
I think that'll be possible. I mean, you can certainly.
I'm going then.
You could feed the questions to me, and I could ask them on the stage because I'm going to be the moderator of that debate between Kevin O'Leary and John Mackey. So even if he doesn't want to be, he is a little bit of elusive. He's afraid to make public comments. He's been
lambasted more than once, and I can understand why he would be afraid of live radio. The problem is that I'm only going to give him a softball interview because I agree with just about everything he says. He encapsulates for me really what I believe surrounding the ideas of helping your neighbor and making a profit all at the same time. I love the guy. I think he's awesome, but he's hard to get as an interview. You don't need my problems, Mark.
Media. He's always critical of the media. He's very gun shy. He's afraid that he's going to, he came close to being fired as the CEO because of all the shenanigans with the Wall Street Journal articles and with him saying things that didn't go over well for whatever reason. So for that reason, he's kind of clammed up. Yep. Kevin O'Leary will tell you anything. So
I'll take him. So. For people who have never been to Freedom Fest, I think that for me, you walk in and you see this gigantic vendor area, and it's just so many people selling the kind of things, investments, gold and silver, books and organizations that are liberty-minded. I think it's amazing how you guys managed to put this together on a regular basis. And the question that always comes up for me is it seems like there's a lot of wealthy people at Freedom Fest. How do you get them there, Mark?
That's really been my bailiwick. I started an investment newsletter back in 1980, Forecasts and Strategies. I'm still going strong after 39 years. And so we have a financial element. We have a 3-day financial freedom conference there. So a lot of wealthy investors come there. We have financial services and products that are sold in the exhibit hall, private placements, investments that people can make. We have people coming all the time that are networking and doing deals in that respect. But they're also concerned citizens. They're not just about making money. They're also interested in the direction our country's going. And so
they sure are. Mark, could you hold over the commercial break here and come back for another segment?
I can do.
Thank you, sir. Free Talk Live, our number, 855-450-3733. That's 855-450-FREE.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything that you want here. Take control of the airwaves. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Although, if you're calling in now, you should have a question for our special guest, Mark Skousen from the Freedom Fest. And yes, all of a sudden new voices are appearing on the show. That's because Mark forgot to introduce the hosts of the program in the last segment. With you here tonight, it's me, Ian.
Richie Rich.
And Mark.
All right. And Mark, I think you did a great job interviewing Mark Skousen, who has graciously held on the line. He's the founder.
I'm a fanboy, honestly.
He's the founder of Freedom Fest, and you've been to 4 or 5?
It's like 4 or 5. 4? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Did you go last year?
I didn't go last year. Okay. No, I think I went the year before. I usually stay at like the cheap hotels down around the corner. They have.
I thought all the hotels were supposed to be cheap in Vegas.
Well,
no?
the
motels on the outskirts.
Nice digs where they have Freedom Fest.
Gotcha.
Mark, what are hotel rooms going for this year?
Well, they have added. There's no longer free parking. They've added the resort fee, and you'd be happy to know that we've negotiated those way down for our attendees at the Paris Resort in Las Vegas. The dates are July 17th through the 20th. And we have a block rate like $129 at Paris, and you can go next door to Bally's for $89.
That's pretty good.
That seems cheap.
Really good rate.
I mean, I've never looked at prices in Vegas. I've never been.
Well, I was going to the cheap place where the strippers live, and it was like $50 a night. So at $80 a night, and you can walk around the corner. Don't forget, I got robbed on the way one
That's
time.
That's true, you did.
I was in the bad section. I really should have just gone ahead and paid for it.
Yeah, you did pay for it later on.
I did.
By losing your glasses to a thief.
If I'd only listened to Mark.
That's funny because one reason we decided to do Freedom Fest, and it is an intellectual feast in the entertainment capital of the world, and we really try to bring highbrow kind of authors, speakers, professors, and we get a lot of really interesting people. And because Las Vegas now has 5-star hotels, 5-star restaurants, great entertainment, it's a place that everybody can go to, and it's not the old seedy Las Vegas it used to be. No, although you can go and get that stuff if you want.
It's not too far. It's a short bus ride away, I can assure you. You can get there.
Yeah, true enough.
Do you do anything to attract the casual Vegas visitors to Freedom Fest?
It's amazing. We double our attendance in the last month. It's just amazing. People come from all over the country, and they drive there, they bike there, they fly there. We've looked at other cities, and nothing is cheaper and offers the quality of hotels and entertainment like Las Vegas. So we're planning to stay there unless they have some problems there. There's always concerns about crime and other things there. But so far we've had a really good program there, and people love it.
I challenge anyone to find a large city that doesn't have crime in it. You're just not going to find that. And the awesome thing about Vegas and Freedom Fest is Freedom Fest sort of ends at about 6 p.m. They've got dinners and cocktail hours and things like that you can go to and rub shoulders with the rich investor folks. Or you can go out with your wife and catch a show. They've got a nice rate for spouses for this event. So it's not inexpensive by any stretch of the imagination. But if you go to freedomfest.com/FTL, that's freedomfest.com/FTL, you can try out Freedom Fest. They've got 5 of the most popular videos from, I believe, last year, including Judge Napolitano there, the speeches. And you can go ahead and hear the speeches from last year. And this is an extreme value, so you'll know what you're getting. freedomfest.com/FTL. Ian, you've got a call?
Mark, yeah, we do have a call for Mark Skousen on the line here. It's Ron, who's calling from Missouri, listening to KWTO. Go ahead, Ron.
Hello. Can you hear my talking?
We hear you fine.
I got you, Ron.
Mark should be able to hear you too. Mark Skousen, You can hear him, correct?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, Ron.
Is any event similar to Freedom Fest occurring at some place near Springfield in Missouri? And what is the best internet website for me to get knowledge and understanding that is presented at Freedom Fest? I heard you say a website, but you talk very fast. Can you say it more slowly?
freedomfest.com/FTL. That's FTL as in Free Talk Live.
Right, and I would
talking very fast.
freedomfest.com.
We'll give it to you. We'll give it to you off the air. Thank you.
Okay.
But
there are other organizations. We have trademarked Freedom Fest, but there are other one-day events that try to imitate us, and we've always had an issue there. But we're in Las Vegas. We're not anywhere else. It's July 17th through the 20th, and if they sign up before the end of this month, they get $200 off the retail price. So it's really
that's a big
deal.
Savings.
Yeah.
freedomfest.com. That's freedomfest.com/FTL. FTL for Free Talk Live. freedomfest.com/FTL.
Yeah, I'm having the board up. Give it to Ron there, who'd called in. But he did ask about other, festivals that happen. I've never heard of one happening in Missouri. I know G. Edward Griffin put one together out in like Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah, but it's going to be this year. It's going to be in Connecticut, I think.
Oh, they're moving that one around?
That one moves around. And nothing compares as far as the size to Freedom Fest.
How many people attend Freedom Fest, Mark Skousen?
Yeah, we have between 2,000 and 2,500, and our Wild West theme is really getting a lot of attention. And by the way, in the evening, we are going to do a square dance, so it is going to be a and we do have the film festival. The Anthem Film Festival is very popular there. But, yeah, we're going to have over 2,000 people.
That's a huge conference for libertarians.
I hope someone is vending boots and hats.
For investments, for philosophy, history, seeing like-minded individuals, all the usual suspects. And we are working to have some top political people there as well. And we got Penn Jillette coming from
That's
Penn
a
and
big deal.
Teller.
Has he been previously?
He has been as an attendee. He's attended some of the debates that we've had when Christopher Hitchens debated Dinesh D'Souza. He was there, and he's been there to visit with others. But this is the first time he's coming and speaking and doing a top chance to meet with people, meet and greet, and get his autograph and photograph and that sort of thing.
My favorite is to see Grover Norquist, probably the most effective libertarian activist on the planet, frankly, just walking around. You can always just grab him for an interview, and he loves to talk about his wife and daughters. And Candace Owens, who's a big deal these days.
Didn't she get banned from Twitter?
Yeah, something like that. She got some kind of trouble. She's going to be speaking.
That's the only thing I know about her. She's like a conservative black lady who changed out some sort of racist statement and changed it to
another racist statement and showed that it was racist.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
They banned her because it was attacking the wrong group or whatever.
Go ahead, Mark.
So we are having a lot of major speakers that are coming for either the first time or they've come. Grover Norquist is a big fan of Freedom Fest and comes every year.
Yep. It's a great event. If you want to go see it, just get a taste of what Freedom Fest is like. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL as in Free Talk Live, and you can get the 5 most popular speeches from last year and see whether you want to go this year. It is a great event, and if you sign up by the end of the month, you get a huge savings.
Hey, Mark, thanks for coming on Free Talk Live with us here tonight. Definitely appreciate it.
Go west, young man, to Freedom Fest.
That's Mark Skousen, the founder of Freedom Fest. We'll continue here with more of our live Sunday edition of Free Talk Live in moments.
Bitcoin.com wants you to know about SaveItPurse.com. Since launching in 2014, over 200,000 users have saved an average of 15% for a combined $4 million using Bitcoin, or BTC. And now you can use Bitcoin Cash, BCH, to fund your account. You can save between 5 to 33% on things you're going to buy anyway when you shop using SaveItPurse.com. Add items to your cart, fund your account, select your discount, and save. SaveItPurse.com. SaveATPurse.com.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. We invite you right here to join us on the radio. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, I want you to join us online over at freetalklive.com, where we've got a lot of features, including our Discord server, where you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners basically around the clock, before, during, and after the show. You'll find people there over on our Discord server. It's a free app, by the way, and the app is actually pretty slick. You can go to discord.lrn.fm, and that'll you can try it out on like a web version of the app, but I recommend downloading the app. Create an account there and jump on in and chat with some of the other listeners and sometimes callers and sometimes the hosts I'm in there pretty much all day and all night. So go to discord.lrn.fm. It's Ian, Richie, and Mark in the studio here tonight. We do have stuff in the news worthy of discussion. Mark, there was a story that you wanted to share. I think it was last night, and I don't think we got a chance to get to it.
No.
About the poor, some of the poorest people in the world becoming richer at a clip faster than some others. Is that right? I have not read this.
It's from the Foundation for Economic Education. It's a good article to follow up Mark Skousen's interview with.
Okay, great.
Yeah. The world's poorest people are getting richer faster than anyone else. In 1820, 94% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. Let me repeat that for
94? What?
Right. In 1820.
Oh, 1820. Okay.
94% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. In 1990, that's the year, basically the year I graduated high school, 34.8%. So 35% of the world lived in extreme poverty. Now, 2015, it's not now, so it's actually less than that. In 2015, 9.6, so less than 10%. It went from 94% in 1820 to 35% in 1990 to 10% in 2015.
So basically poverty is being eradicated.
Poverty is being eradicated while you hear about the economic disparity, economic inequality. Because you know why? While your life gets better, it's important to look at other people and how much better their life is getting.
Or worse.
This is one of the things that Foundation for Economic Education does, is there's a lot of crap out there on the internet that will tell you, they'll use statistics to lie to you. They'll make it seem like somehow your life sucks because somebody else's life is better. Because some rich movie star has a Lear jet. There's a disparity and there's some kind of problem. Well, I don't care how well somebody else is doing. I care how well I'm doing.
Are you doing better today than you were 20 years ago, 10 years ago?
Right. And the answer for most Americans is yes. Some it's not.
I'll answer yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are people that are moving out of all kinds of economic strata all the time. Rich people become poor in America. It happens. They make poor choices, and these things happen. Basically, lottery winners, they don't keep their money generally.
They don't know how to handle money.
It's a wealth consciousness issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's an issue. So going here, it's valuable to acknowledge that the problem remains. It's important to reflect on just how far we've come. The speed of poverty alleviation in the last 25 years has been historically unprecedented. Not only is the proportion of people in poverty at a record low, but in spite of adding 2 billion people to the planet's population, the overall number of people living in extreme poverty has fallen too. As Johan Nordberg writes in his book Progress, if you had to choose a society to live in, but did not know what your social or economic position would be, you would probably choose a society with the lowest proportion, not the lowest numbers, of poor, because that's a best judgment of the life of an average citizen. Well, at 1820, 94% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, and that's less than $1.90 per day, adjusted for purchasing power. So basically living on less than $2 a day.
Wait. Living on what is today less than $2 a day, but back then would have been a few pennies or something.
Right. I mean, if you consider in America, these numbers were not far from the truth. Is the average American back then was more than 50% of the American population. I don't have the number sitting here in front of me. But in 1820, more than 50% of Americans were living in extreme poverty. That was the norm.
Well, can't we bring that number down to zero by taxing billionaires?
No.
Forced wealth redistribution.
I mean, all you're going to do.
Wait, that's not the reason why the world is better off? It's not because of welfare is why people are better off today? Because I bet some people would like to believe that.
Well, you're not getting the welfare to the extreme poor. I mean, the people that advocate for welfare aren't talking about getting it to the extreme poor. They're talking about getting it to obese people with cell phones in America.
For the American welfare system,
yeah.
But there are those that advocate for sending aid overseas, to the impoverished,
to despots that run foreign countries who would never give it to poor people.
Well, yes, but I don't think the people advocating for that understand that completely either.
Probably not.
Yeah, they probably don't. But they can, once they're told. I mean, all you have to do is say, "Duh." The banana, the general running the Banana Republic, where you intend to send this money, is just going to take it and live better. rather than the poor person getting it. Come on.
And give it to his army so he can continue to defend his empire.
Right.
Correct.
And subjugate people. That's
Nicolas
what it's all
Maduro,
about.
anyone?
Yeah.
Venezuela?
That's how these things go. In the last quarter century, more than 1.25 billion people escaped extreme poverty.
In the last quarter century, so a couple decades.
Right. It's very fast. That equates to over 138,000 people being lifted out of poverty every day. If it takes you 5 minutes to read this article, it'll take us more than that because we don't read articles very quickly.
We talk about them.
Yeah, another 500 people will have escaped the shackles of extreme poverty by the time you finish. Progress is awesome. In 1820, only 60 million people didn't live in extreme poverty. Today, it's 6.6 billion that don't.
Wow.
Now, let's consider those people who are still trapped in extreme poverty. And those are the ones you probably should focus on. There's no doubt about it. But remember...
Let me guess. They live in some of the most despotic regimes on the planet.
Well, I'm sure that's true. Let's see.
Venezuela, North Korea.
North Dakota, too.
Slightly more than 380 million reside in Africa, with Nigeria being home to the largest. That's 86 million.
Now, interestingly, I was just, as sort of a cross-reference here, I was looking at some numbers. It was actually uphold.com, which is a website that lets cryptocurrency users easily kind of cash in and out of cryptocurrency. Sure. And they did an analysis of some numbers over the last few years that were provided by localbitcoins.com, which is a site that allows individuals to sell and purchase Bitcoin either in person or through a bank account and or money orders. There's different ways to do it. But the neat thing about Local Bitcoins is they do business in pretty much every country in the world that they can possibly do business in, and so they have some interesting statistics as far as which countries in the world are the biggest per capita Bitcoin purchasers? And interestingly, it was Nigeria that was one of those countries. And so it was like Venezuela, Nigeria, I think Kenya. Nigeria and Kenya were the two hottest spots in Africa. Venezuela and next-door neighbor Colombia were also very, very hot in South America.
Lots of poor people living in those locations.
Right.
India and Nigeria is home to over 40% of the world's extremely poor.
Wow.
When it comes to the cryptocurrencies, one thing that always confuses me and confounds me a little bit is who's taking Venezuelan currency in exchange for crypto. Like, as high as the inflation rate is going, why would you sell off crypto to take Venezuelan currency that won't be worth anything within a few hours of when you make that trade?
That's an excellent question.
You probably needed to do business.
In Venezuela?
Yeah.
Like it's businessmen, you think? Is that what?
I'm guessing. If you're going to buy the things that you're going to sell, you need you need cash to buy those things today. Yeah. Now, at some point, that will change relatively soon, I'm presuming.
But the Venezuelans then buying the crypto are trading their Venezuelan dollars for the crypto, and then what the businessman then just goes quickly to an exchange to get something of value for the Venezuelan.
Good question.
Like,
they must have some way that they can dump
at the end of that.
Yeah, they must have some way they can dump off those bolivar, because you don't want to hold on to that crap.
No.
You would think not, but if they're selling crypto, someone's holding it. It has to go somewhere.
It has to go into somebody's hands at some point. Yeah, that's true. I don't know what exchange they use. If so, then they would be able to put it on an exchange and repurchase the cryptocurrency. How quick or easy of a process that is, I don't know. But regardless, the numbers are what they are.
I understand.
Whether they're buying them with dollars or with bolivar, it's people in Venezuela that are doing a lot of purchasing of per capita, as I understand it, cryptocurrencies. So we can continue here with your thoughts. Welcome on the poor people, not so poor anymore, around the world. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Dial toll-free to join us here. If you want, you can bring up anything you want. That happens to be on your mind. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. By the way, Bitcoin.com, since we're talking about Bitcoin, they happen to be a sponsor, longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live. It's a great site to visit to get all kinds of information about Bitcoin, not just starting. Maybe you're just getting started in Bitcoin. You can take their Bitcoin Academy. It's free. Go to Bitcoin.com to do that. They can also help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy some Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend Bitcoin. Plus, you can read the latest news over on their news site at news.bitcoin.com, and they have a Bitcoin forum that allows you to engage with the community. Go to Bitcoin.com to learn more. Again, that's Bitcoin.com. We're talking about poor people in the world becoming harder to find. Now, we're talking about the term was what? Extreme poverty?
Yeah, extreme poverty, people living on less than $2 a day. That's pretty poor.
So there's still relative poverty. I mean, they're still poor compared to rich, but the poor of today are much less so than 150 years ago, or 50,
and
or
much
100
better
years
off
ago.
than that time frame.
In the United States, the poverty is based on sort of a mean. Now, what that means is that there's a wage that's half the people make more than that, and half people.
That's the median, not the mean.
All right, whatever, the median.
I don't know how many times we got to go through this.
Statistical averages are hard. There's 3 of them at least.
And that means the poverty rate's based on that. Well, it shouldn't be. It should be based on, can you live on this rate, or what really define? They need a better definition of poverty than what somebody else makes.
A living wage.
I don't know what that means, and it's very difficult to know. And when you ask people, basically they just want to make more money than they currently make and work less. And it's poverty in the United States is a joke compared to what real poverty looks like. There are very few
poverty in Nigeria.
Very few people in the United States living in shacks with dirt floors. Okay,
right?
Yeah.
With no running water or sanitation or anything like that.
That's what poverty looks like, people. Yeah. Are you going?
Would that be extreme poverty?
Yeah. Are you going to a well with a container,
a bucket,
to get some water every day? Yeah. If you're
someone would say, you have a well, I got to walk all the way down to the river.
That's right. Well, some people do. Some people choose to live this way. They want to see what it's like to rough it for a while. At my house, we homesteaded for about 10 years. We grew our own pigs. We had a big garden. We heated with wood. I still heat with wood. And did a bunch of things. And that was to see what this was like. And I can tell you, it's hard to live that way, but it takes a lot of preparation. You got to split all your wood ahead of time. You can't do that. You can't just wait. So anyway, going on here, most of the people who are 40% of these people reside in India and Nigeria, according to this. The poorest, a similar trend in Nigeria can be seen since the millennium.
The trend being people coming out of poverty.
Right. Domestic income per capita has increased by over 800%.
Wow. In 25 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
From
that's huge.
$270
huge as a percentage, but if you're talking about extreme poverty being $2 a day, that's still
$20. Yeah. From $270 to over $2,450. That's as much work. There is much work can be done, but this level of progress shows that even the poorest countries, the speed of economic growth is encouraging. In order to help the poorest, consider the impact of free market capitalism and what it's had on the last 200 years in alleviating extreme poverty. The Industrial Revolution turned the once impoverished Western countries into abundant societies. The new age of globalization, which started around 1980, saw the developing world enter the global economy and resulted in the largest escape from poverty ever recorded. This is something that the late Father Warshawski, who they mentioned earlier, would have been eager to celebrate. And I'm with the Foundation for Economic Education on this. Socialism, which seems to be the opposite of capitalism, so I'm told, I don't really know, but basically statism doesn't have a solution for poverty.
No.
It doesn't.
Tax the rich.
That's all it's got. And then what do they do with the taxes? They keep it for themselves. They don't it never trickles down.
There's people that get checks.
Yeah, but they don't end up any moving up the economic ladder.
No, that's true.
They're trapped in poverty for the rest of their lives. Well, it's just enough to be trapped.
Even with the minimum wage increase, one of the results they had in Seattle where people just worked less hours and enjoyed more of their leisure time, but had the same income just with higher hourly pay.
Well, they also weren't asked to come on longer either. They didn't want to be paid. They weren't getting paid overtime because of these things. So some people who wanted more hours couldn't get it.
Right.
So so sure, maybe some of them were enjoying their leisure time. Some of them weren't. They just had leisure time because they couldn't go to work. Others lost jobs because places shut down.
True.
And when you raise the minimum wage in a city, then what you'll find is that certain services run to the outskirts of the city, so they don't have to pay the minimum wage.
When some of the people living on the outskirts run into the city to get the higher rate.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
If they can
find the job.
Sure. And then they go into competition for other people.
Because usually jobs get cut once the minimum wage increases.
Right.
So
I mean, and if you tax the rich heavily enough in the United States, you will find that they move elsewhere.
Right.
Just like they have in New York.
They can afford to.
Yeah. And now we did read an article not too long ago that the rich were moving into California.
How bizarre was that?
Yeah, so strange that that's occurring. But I guess it's just because that's the lifestyle they want to have. I can't tell you entirely. If they got enough money for it, then they're up to it. But at some point or another, if you tax them heavily enough, the rich will just go ahead, turn tail, and go someplace else.
Let's go to the phones here. I don't know if you got more to the story, Mark.
No, that's it.
Okay. John is in Texas watching us on YouTube. Go ahead, John.
Hello. Hey, I wanted to ask about colonialism and how that all plays a role in what you're talking about.
Can we define colonialism? Can somebody define that for me?
Yeah, I would like to hear some people's opinions, and then I'll give my own. Or I could give my own definition. And
go ahead with your definition. I mean, just not intimately familiar with the term.
Colonialism, it's
like the British Empire taking over India.
That's where any other empire goes into another people's land and take over the indigenous and what's it called? Either wipe out the indigenous or just take advantage of the resources and make the indigenous people work for the colonial system. You know, the colonialists are the ones who made America.
So the American colonies would be a classic example of colonialism. Okay.
Or the phrase "the sun never sets" on the British Empire.
And so how's the question related to the topic at hand, which is to say poor people being pulled out of poverty by the marketplace and free markets?
I'm saying that you're speaking about this colonial system being a way out, and I'm saying that...
No, I don't think we talked about a colonial system being the way out. I think, Mark, what you said was freedom...
The fact that you're relying on money and this way of transfer of money, like, literally that's what's making a unbalance of equivalent exchanges. The way we exchange money for work, it's very unequal, and that's due to the way we go about money and this whole bit system thing. I don't think that's gonna make things more equal. It's just making people with technology.
Well, I don't care about things being equal. Equality doesn't matter to me at all. Poverty matters to me. Mm-hmm. A bunch of poor people who are free to be poor, sitting around and trading chickens for rocks or whatever. If they want to stay that way, they're welcome to do it. The problem is that in order to keep a system of barter, which is really your only option besides a money system, the only way to keep a system of barter is to force your neighbor not to be able to trade for money. And when somebody uses force, I don't care whether they came from Britain, the United States, or Nigeria. That person, if they initiate force, is wrong. So how would you propose to have I'll tell you, I'm not for imperialism. I'm against it. But we didn't have this sort of conscious capitalism that is popular today going on 200 years ago. So we can only look at what happened in history. We can compare places that didn't get colonialized versus places that did, and in many cases...
They're still under oppression, though, by colonialism, because of the fact that the whole world is colonialized.
Right. Well, there's places that you could look at, outposts. You could look at outposts that weren't colonialized.
Where? Like which places are you talking about?
Madagascar didn't have a lot of colonialization going on. There's plenty of islands around in the Pacific that didn't happen in. There's places in Southeast Asia that it didn't occur in. You can look at Inuits going on in North America.
Wait, you're saying there is colonialism had no effect on Madagascar?
No, I didn't say no effect. I said I'm talking about less of an effect.
Oh, less of it.
Right. Well, you can look at it greater and lesser, but many
now that
times...
we're talking about effects and colonialism, like the whole fact, what do you do when two people are living on a land and one person decides to pollute the river, and when you're living downstream the river from the river? Stand
by, John.
That's a different question.
I'm not sure what colonialism has to do. I must have missed the link between colonialism and pulling people out of poverty. I thought we were saying that it was the free market.
Equating it with capitalism.
More coming up here. Free Talk Live.
Go to themorganreport.com and receive updates and insights you will not find anywhere else on the web. You will discover how to grow and protect your wealth, under all market conditions. The free Morgan Report provides interviews, webinars, question and answer sessions, plus mind-blowing videos. As David Morgan says, let my passion create your wealth. TheMorganReport.com. TheMorganReport.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're here on this live Sunday edition. We'll take your calls and your thoughts about what you want. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Mark, you were sharing with us a story from the Foundation for Economic Education, fee.org.
Yep.
They're talking about the just stunning lifting out of extreme poverty that has happened in just the last 25 years.
Right.
A significant portion of the world's population that had been considered extremely poor is no longer in that category. And, of course, as this happens, other people are lifted out of their, areas of wealth. Everybody's getting wealthier as the world creates more wealth. Guess what? Because wealth is more than just money. Wealth is, basically, and it's hard to really kind of give it an easy definition, but there's more than just money. It's also the things that you have, the abilities that you have, the ability that you might have to take some time off from work without having to work. That shows some level of wealth. The fact that you might have air conditioning and heating and ice, some of the things that we take for granted in a lot of the Western world is an incredibly wealthy thing to be able to have access to.
And on an individual basis as well, because everyone has a different value system on
Sure.
what they think brings themselves wealth.
Well, and then we got on the line with John. See, Mark, your story was kind of like about the numbers and how they've changed over not just the last 25 years, but over a couple hundred years, basically.
Right, going from 94% of the world population being in extreme poverty in 1820 to 1990, 35% being in, and then, in 2015, only 10%.
Right. And then John in Texas, who is still on the line with us, watching us on YouTube, he came in with this question about colonialism, and I wasn't sure if you had mentioned colonialism during your story. I don't think you did.
You won't find me making a defense of colonialism, generally.
Right, because, we're libertarians, so we're against the idea of forcing your way of life on another person. But, John, you brought that, issue up of colonialism, and I'm not really sure what your statement was. Could you kind of recap that for me, John?
I was basically just saying, the whole mindset of saying that, they're poor because of the way they choose to live, and by the Western society or whoever it may be providing them with these services and more convenient living situations is supposedly better for them. And if you are paying attention to modern day, problems and just the way the world is now, there's a lot of environmental and social economical things that are going on because of the system that we're trying to say is beneficial for other people when we have no right to go into the jungles. The jungles are being cut down still, and they're using those for farms, and they're saying, hey, this is better for everybody if we cut down the
Let me
jungles.
see if I can clarify, because I think I'm starting to grasp your claim, John. I have a question real quick. Can there be an objective definition of extreme poverty?
Can you simplify that a little bit?
Sure. According to the article, extreme poverty are those people living on less than roughly $2 a day. So,
you're talking about money. That money, our whole money system is right. All we owe so much money, and before America was even started, we owed so much money in debt to other countries.
Hold on, I don't know. Whoa! I don't owe any country or anybody, for that matter, any amount of money. I am not in debt. How did you end up owing these other countries money?
You're saying that
Well, I'm saying even the people in the jungle, right? Can you say that they're in extreme poverty?
Wait, I want to answer
Okay.
I want to answer the first question. Are you saying that it's not written in history that the United States was already in debt and owed was before the United States was even established they already
Well,
owed
okay,
England
so there's a difference
money.
between the U.S. government and the debt that those people hold versus your own personal debt. I don't
we're
accept.
U.S. citizens. What are you talking about?
I still think we're
The
getting off
United
track.
States government may claim you as its serf. That doesn't make it so.
Yeah, that's just a fantasy.
Yeah, but you're saying that, but and then
if a
you
bunch of
wanna say,
old
hey,
fools
well,
in Washington,
all right.
D.C. want to spend a bunch of money that
Let's
they've
back
stolen.
this off just a second because the entire premise is flawed. Andrew Jackson, the 9th president of the United States, I believe his number was number 9, paid off all the debt. It was a zero balance at that point. So no. None of the debt that was held over from the United States in its creation has come on to today.
But even
the
if
Civil
it was,
War has.
Even if it was, I don't bear any responsibility for what politicians have decided to do.
I still think that's off track to the point he's trying to make, and I want to.
Sure, but I want to make it
that-
clear
that-
that he's
that is
wrong
a
about
good
the
point.
idea that we are all in debt because of what these politicians are doing. I
That's your
don't
point?
hold any of that debt. And I'm not in debt because of what Bill Clinton or Bush, George Bush or Barack Obama or Donald Trump have done. I have no responsibility for it, and it doesn't matter if they consider me a citizen or not. It's not my responsibility. I didn't spend it.
So you agree that the things they do, you have no say in what they do.
Yeah, we don't have any say in what they do.
Yeah,
They're a
what would
criminal
you possibly?
gang.
Yeah, what would you be able to do?
It's a criminal enterprise that lets you, cast a ballot once every 4
years. So why
years.
are you talking about money? Why are you talking about if the money system? Hello?
I wasn't trying to talk about the money system. I was the article had an
You're
objective.
saying that people are less poor now, and you're talking about that because the fact that they're living on $2.
The equivalent of $2 a day.
No,
as
he
an
asked
objective
you a
measure.
question. The question was, can we define extreme poverty? And then you began to get evasive.
Yeah, we can define extreme poverty, but I don't think defining it with $2 with
How do you define it?
Okay, that's
how
fine.
You define it,
Dead
it has to
kids?
do with-
Because I can tell you the infant mortality rate has gone way down in the world.
I'm just trying to get some clarity. Like, if you don't want to use the definition in the article, that's fine. But we have to find a starting point on how we pull people out of poverty. And if we're saying extreme poverty is not $2 a day, seriously, how would you define it? And then we can go from there.
I think poverty has to do. We have to take into consideration the land also, because you want to talk about helping these other countries, and here in America ourselves, we're
I don't really care.
the land.
I just want a definition.
You don't care.
No, at this point, I mean, we can
He
work our
asked
way
you
there.
to define extreme poverty. You don't want to use a dollar value. So
I'm telling you, extreme poverty has to do with the land that you're living on. If the
So is
land
it less
that you're
than an
living on
acre
is
of
all
land?
messed up,
no doubt it's going to be a lot harder to live on a desert than it would in a lush forest, I suspect. Is that what you're getting at?
I'm saying even the lush forests that were being lived on were being pushed off because it has to do with mineral rights. It goes back to colonialism. People where there's good land and there's good stuff, the people who are living there are going to get pushed off. And people
That's
are
a
acting
true
like
statement,
that's
right?
happening.
Like if poor people have land that is rich in minerals, they are likely to be pushed off. In many cases, if we're talking about the Amazon, for instance, it's not Americans that are pushing it off. Americans may or Westerners may be driving the push because they're willing to pay, but it's not them that are doing it.
Wouldn't they be doing it with the government?
It's armed gangs basically that are driving people.
But isn't
off.
that the government, an armed gang?
Essentially,
it is the government through the
de facto
through the
government.
Gangs. They're saying the gangs with guns.
Right.
And
Well,
drugs.
here would be my premise. The United States government and every other government on the planet is the most successful armed gang in a given geographic area. So I'm not.
That's true, but
okay.
So are
you're not
okay?
gonna
I'm going to try to take a
let
step
you.
back.
I just don't know. I don't know where you're going. What do you want me to say here? White people are the problem? If we could just get rid of the white people?
I didn't hear him say anything about race.
Well, he's saying colonialism. It's a buzzword.
I'm saying we haven't even distinguished what makes somebody poor or rich now, because I said
I know.
it has nothing to do with money.
That's why I'm frustrated.
Well, so change it for money. If you're going to define it as land,
I'm saying the fact that it determines right when I started saying one of the key factors of what makes somebody rich or not is the land that they live on. He started going off onto all of that.
Okay, well let's backtrack then and go there then. So what makes someone impoverished is the quality of the land that they live on.
Yeah, and when people are being pushed off of their own lands, what can we do about it?
Okay, well, that's an entirely different question than the colonialism
Because
question.
you're talking about getting people out of poverty, and I'm saying, yo, you giving them money and giving them these toys isn't what they want. They want their freedom. They want their culture. They want to live.
Yeah,
where
people
they're
should be able to absolutely have land and not be forced off of their
Property
land.
rights are the fundamental, aspect of freedom. If you don't have property rights, you don't have freedom.
John, thanks for the call. We can continue to discuss property and
now that we got some common ground.
If poor people could actually be, and anybody, let alone poor, but anybody, if they could not be pushed from their own land by governments, that would be amazing. More coming up here. Free Talk. It's Free Talk Live. You're invited here. If you want to join us on the radio, you can do that. Our toll-free number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And if you are an individual who rejects the initiation of force and agrees to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle, then you qualify to use Liberty.menu. It is a tool for the Liberty community. At its core, it's a directory for events, businesses, and digital content creators. So whatever it is that you do, if you would like to easily share that thing that you do, or more than one thing, you can put up as many items on the site as you want. It's basically a directory that's kind of a map-based thing, so you can look at it as well as browse it. And if you want more people to know about what you do, again, whether it's your business or your favorite event or whatever, just put it up on Liberty.menu. It's free to do that, so why not? Do you not want free publicity?
I finally got my wife to put her business on there.
Excellent. Liberty.menu. It just costs whatever time it takes to fill out the form and, upload a picture or whatever. No
It's
big
the Yellow
deal.
Pages for the Libertarian Movement.
Basically, yep. Except Yellow Pages cost a lot to advertise in, and this is free. So, Liberty.menu. As we continue here, we go to, actually, before we go back to your calls and thoughts, any further comments? Because, there was a lot more we could have done with John, but we have other people who we want to get on the air, so, we had to end that call there. I suspect that, we could have continued to have this conversation with his concern about colonialism, which I think we're all legitimately concerned with being thrown off of our property, regardless of whether it's the colonialists or, just your local government doing it. Anytime you don't have the right to do what you want with your land, if there's some other goon that can come in with a gun or a gang of people and tell you what to do and or throw you off that property, it's hard to get put roots down. It's hard to create wealth if you never know where you can stand.
It's as if he was equating colonialism and capitalism as the driver of
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see that. I see colonialism as being taken care of, not having been taken care of. That's a different tense. It is being taken care of in the sense that there's less colonialism than there going on today than there was previously, and it's certainly less overt when it is. Obviously, there's some situations, lending organizations, international lending organizations, which seem to want to enslave entire governments, but they are taking the money, which is unwise. He was also saying something like, that the colonialism, he was basically saying colonialism was responsible for the taking of people's land, and I would say that no, that's government. But let me back that statement up. So, for instance, there's a list of 10 countries. You tell me which ones you think have property rights. But these 10 countries were never colonialized. Well, okay, greater and lesser property rights.
Okay.
How's that?
The illusion of property rights, like we have here in the U.S., is that what you're considering property rights?
To some extent,
where you can transfer and hold titles to land that ultimately, if the government decides they want to take from you, then they pretty much can?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to say they have it.
You're going to say they have it? Most of their citizenry is poor, but doesn't have to work because they get some kind of stipend. So they're like on welfare, basically.
From the oil.
I don't think they really have property rights there particularly well.
Okay.
Iran.
I'm going to say no.
It doesn't seem like they have a very tyrannical government. Things didn't go very well. Remember, these are countries that never experienced Western colonialism. Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, seems pretty Western country. Korea.
Yes. South Korea.
Oh, half of it.
Right.
The other half, terrible tyrannical government where basically you own nothing. All right.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Thailand.
And your incredible poverty in North Korea compared to
I'm going to
South
say yes
Korea.
to Thailand.
I don't know. I just can't really answer at all. That's the kingdom.
Okay, so you're just asking us. You don't even have the answers.
Well, I'm agreeing or disagreeing, right? China.
More so now than
more
previous.
so now, yeah, but previously,
I would say because a lot of it's rural.
I was told when I was a kid, eat your food. There's starving kids in China.
Okay.
So, not doing so hot there. Afghanistan.
The government confiscated the rice. Afghanistan.
That's hard to say because there's been 3 empires roll through it in an attempt to colonialize it in the last nearly a little over 100 years.
See, this is where it gets. I want to pause real quick because this is where it gets difficult. When you talk about China and Afghanistan, to me, I picture a lot of rural area in those countries, and I would say that farmers on the outskirts in those areas probably have a lot of property rights because they're not being terrorized by a local like big city government empire.
A lot of time farmers just have to give the fruits of their labor in the form of crops to somebody.
Right.
They have to give some kind of vig, just for being allowed to do their thing.
I happen to have a handy chart here from globalpropertyguide.com. This is the Property Rights Index. So we've heard of, Human Freedom Index. We've heard of Economic Freedom Index. This is the Property Rights Index. And I don't know if it has a date on it. Oh, it looks like Heritage Foundation. So they pulled their numbers from Heritage, probably their economic freedom study, but just looked at the property side of it. And for Asia, Thailand ranks in at 51% or 51 points out of a potential 100. So not so great in Thailand.
How about Nepal?
Where does that rank, though, on the globe?
Nepal at 37.
How about Bhutan?
Bhutan, I saw it on the list here.
It's got to be pretty low.
Higher up, number 60.
Really? Okay.
Then you got South Korea at 78, followed by Malaysia at 85, Taiwan at 86, Japan at 89, Hong Kong at 94, and with Singapore at number 1 at 97.
How about Ethiopia? Can you do Africa?
Yeah, I can find that. Sure.
That's the top one here that has not been colonialized. So I don't see a relationship, is all I'm saying, between colonialism and property rights. I'm not saying that the caller doesn't have a legitimate point that colonialism is bad. He's right. I just don't think that there's a relationship between colonial empires, place having been a colony, and them either now having or not having property rights. And he claimed that was the indicator of whether or not somebody was free and or successful or wealthy or whatever. I would say that probably the indicator that most people would come to an agreement on is child mortality rate. And the child mortality rate has plummeted over the last 2 centuries, which is the time period we're talking about here. Colonialism's bad, but the shrinking of our world, whether it went through colonialism or whatever, because we only have one world. We don't have another subset where if this happened or if this didn't happen or whatever. We only have the world that we have. And in that world, now we've got things like vaccines, and people are getting enough food, and they're getting medical care, and they're surviving beyond childhood. So
can an indigenous population be made better off through forced colonization?
I don't know I don't know why I have to answer the question, but I would say that if you use force, I would say you have gone about the wrong way. You should simply offer people the things that they want to buy and take in exchange something that they have to give. If they don't have anything worth giving, then don't take it. But if the thing that they have to give is labor, in a diamond mine,
or the minerals from the land, I think was what the caller was getting at. The indigenous population was getting colonized, and their resources being taken from them through the colonization process, and they were being made worse off.
The only way to stop somebody from trading their minerals that they have from their land for whatever trinkets or life-saving medicine or whatever the Westerners might bring is to stop them. And the only way you can stop them is by using a gun. And we've got lots of banana republics out there. We know what it's like when a country shuts off trade. It doesn't turn out well.
We got more on the way here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. By the way, the United States not in the top 10 on International Property Rights Index.org. We're coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
Business owners, you want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll free and join us here if you want. Our live Sunday edition continues with me, Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Don't forget, you can check out more of Richie Rich on his own podcast that he does. It's called The Anarchist Experience.
AnarchistExperience.com.
And it's a weekly show.
Yep. About an hour a week, and my co-host is back.
Excellent.
From his adventures.
So you guys are going to be doing that, what, you said Saturdays? I think
we record it on Saturdays.
When does it get released?
I usually get it uploaded and put out there Sunday mornings.
AnarchistExperience.com, which means you get a double dose of Richie if you listen to the latest episode of Anarchist Experience on Sunday and then tune into Free Talk Live. So we continue here. Let's go to your calls and thoughts because, I mean, we can share more from the International Property Rights Index, which is a new index. I don't think we've ever pulled up this index before, so we do love a good international index here on Free Talk Live.
We do.
Let's go to Eric in Georgia. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes.
Are you calling from the county jail?
No.
Okay.
There is a beeping on the line. I don't know if you can hear that.
The beeping. I got I was having someone trying to call me.
Okay.
Line.
Gotcha.
Thought it was like intro music.
You can call from the county jail as long as you pay for it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we'll even take a call. But go ahead.
But anyway, I wanted to talk about universal basic income and why I believe that's this is necessary and how it can fit to libertarian and voluntarist ethics.
Really? I want to hear this. Because normally it would involve tax money or inflating a money supply in order to fund this universal basic income, which generally, for our listeners that may not be familiar with the term, is the idea of the government cutting a check every month to absolutely everybody.
Although it doesn't have to be the government. Like, we can separate that.
Sure, and maybe that's what he's going to propose. So I want to hear what you got to say. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, it would. This is an idea. I'm also running on this for the Georgia State House as well.
Which state house?
Georgia.
By instituting, it'll be funded mainly through lottery. So there's really no other form of revenue I can think of that is. I mean, of course, obviously you can just donate it voluntarily.
Then aren't you just taxing the poor to redistribute to the poor?
Well, wait a second, though. When you're talking about the lottery, currently the lottery, and Georgia has one, is they're taking the revenues and giving it to the schools. How would you propose to – are you just going to take the revenue from the lottery and give it to the schools through tax money and then give the revenue from the lottery to your universal basic income situation? And, I mean, really –
what about the children?
That's just taxes. I mean, you're just going to tax us for the more – there's more taxes for schools now.
Well, that could I wouldn't have a problem running that aside the current lottery. So there could be two separate lotteries.
All right.
That's one thing.
Well, he was talking about this would be involuntarism, so there wouldn't be government schools anyway, right? So are you proposing universal?
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
Are you proposing this universal basic income based on a lottery in a true free market where there's no government coercive entity at all? Is that what you're proposing this as, or is it?
Well, it could be a transition. It could work just as easily in a stateless society for that, but the same mechanisms. And currently, what the lottery goes to, it does go to. There are universal preschool programs, and also goes to the Hope Scholarship as well.
Yeah.
So, and
if it can already be done in a free society, why not just do it that way under the current structure?
Because you can't do you can't hold a lotto unless you're the government.
Okay, but you can.
Yeah,
but you can open a casino.
Monopoly for one thing. Yeah. Well, not in Georgia. You can't do that. Well, right now they're talking about it right now of opening that up so that they could have more funding for the Georgia Hope Scholarship. So, but so I would go for just so basically have a separate lottery though, and we'd actually the revenue that it would raise. You could set the part of it aside for the actual prize money that you would win if you win the lottery. And or for multiple individuals, and the rest would have a dividend that would go for whoever else would sign up for it.
Would the universal basic income be fixed? And then what if you didn't
based on entries?
It's an interest in how much money the lottery would raise.
Okay.
So I think, which I would say realistically, in the first year, you might get about 6 times as much as we raised in the current one, which I'm just speculating this, but I think that is a real expectation. What's that?
Why would it be 6 times more than lottery is currently doing? We have a lottery. We know what it does. Why would your lottery get 6 times as much?
With the continuation of the current lottery, because he proposed a second lottery.
With competition of the current lottery.
Yeah, and with this one, it's more of a guarantee, because with lottery, a lot of people would actually be very wise, and I would say they're very correct, of not playing it, because the odds of them winning are astronomically very low. But with this one, you would actually get money back from that. Well, you might not win big, but you would still win.
Would you have to play the lottery to get the universal basic income, or was it going to be distributed amongst the whole population regardless?
I would say you would probably sign up for it the same way that Alaskans sign up for the oil dividend. With that, so you would just have to sign up for it. It can be something like it's like you have to be a resident of Georgia for about a year.
Sure.
So you could. So that's how you would do that. So essentially do that. But
so people would be choosing to play your lotto, this universal basic income lotto, because the odds would be higher that they could possibly win it. Basically.
Well, they would. Well, what's the 100? Well, this one, the higher it gets, automatically, this existence is a guarantee that they're going to get money back.
He's saying that if they sign up for it, that's sort of like winning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The more they pay, and the more revenue it generates, the higher amount they're going to get. Like I was saying.
But the lotto is generally funded by poor people, right? Like people who don't understand money tend to be the ones. They don't understand numbers. They tend to be the ones who play the lotto. So aren't you essentially funding a universal income, basic income off the backs of the poor?
Well, this is why I'm actually saying it would actually have more, because there's more of appeal for a mass for Georgians to go ahead and pay more for that, and across the income spectrum as well.
Because they're generous.
You're saying they'd feel better about playing.
Because they're getting money back for that, and it's and you have kind of like if it gets big enough and it's actually
give us $1, we'll give you a penny.
Well, yeah.
Do you happen to know what the revenue is for the current Georgia lottery?
Roughly, I think it's $2 billion. So I would say if it would go up to about, I'm just speculating, if it go back to $12 billion, that would be enough to give at least starting off with $1,000 a year
to each participant.
$1,000 a year. What are you going to do with it?
And that's only if it. Hold on, that's if it hits $12 billion.
$80 a month.
$12 billion. Well, let's say $12 billion. If we give we set aside $1 billion for the actual prize money for that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of $11 billion would go the rest of the 11 million Georgians. So
I don't know the population of Georgia.
It's 11 million. He's right.
Okay.
So 11 million Georgians, $11 million?
Yeah,
that's not $1,000 per person.
Well, $11 billion.
11 billion.
Okay, my mistake.
Billion. And there's a lot you could do with $1,000 a year.
I'm not convinced that you're going to get $11 billion at this point, bringing a lottery on to compete with the current lottery, and that lottery is going to get 6 times as much because people can give you $1 and get back a penny. I am unconvinced that that's going to work.
Yeah, and so you're saying that right now the Lotto is bringing in $2 billion. Is that right? $2 billion?
Right.
So, and you said hold $1 billion for, so basically 1/10 of, if you hold the $1 billion for the prize money, 1/10 of what's currently, or that it would be 1/10 of what your ideal amount would be. So really it'd be more like $100, even if you flip the current Lotto to the system you're talking about. If you just kept one Lotto, so instead of 2 Lottos, flipping the current Lotto to what you're talking about, you're talking about a $100 prize per year per person in Georgia. That's not really worth getting too excited about, right?
Well, something's better than nothing.
Well, that's what like in the case. Yeah, well, that is something though. And the one thing about this key thing is it's voluntary. If it's a bad idea, then you're not forced to pay for it.
True. It's kind
I like that part.
That's true. That's true. And I'll give you that. Eric, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. It's voluntary, but only if you ignore the fact that the government outlaws lotteries. Because then you can't voluntarily start your own competing lottery because they'll send men with guns to your offices and put you in handcuffs. So. Free Talk Live, the live Sunday edition here. You may take control of the airwaves, bring up whatever's on your mind. Our number is 855-450-FREE.
Call in and talk about what you want and get told that it sucks. That's what has happened tonight here on Free Talk Live.
Well, we're not going to candy coat. We're not going to, sugarcoat our feelings and our thoughts about an idea. I mean, if you want, some yes men to tell you your idea is great, you're going to have to hire them because that's not our job here.
And I'm available if you want to hire a yes man.
You want to hire a yes man. All right.
Richie Rich's yes man service.
So if you want to comment,
if you want to advertise your silly idea about colonialism or lotteries or whatever it might be.
We've got 194 radio stations.
Right. Mark at freetalklive.com. I'll help you produce an ad, and we won't have anything to say during it. It'll just get played during the show.
No, it won't be an endorsement, though. We'll tell you that.
No, it won't be. It won't be an endorsement.
Yeah, we'll run your ad, but we're not going to.
I will only endorse projects that I think are a good idea.
Right. So if you want to, if you want an honest assessment of, what we think about something, feel free to call in with it. And we're not going to be mean. I don't think we're mean about it.
I try not to be mean.
Right. We just don't agree. You're
talking, and in the gentleman's case who just called in, you're talking about trying to sell Lotto to people who
that's what he was talking about.
All of whom do not play the lottery. Right, like I'm of the opinion that the lottery is a tax on people who can't do math. Mm-hmm. Right,
that's what I was saying earlier.
And that's what I've been told over and over again. I haven't run the math, but as I understand it, I'll be better off keeping my dollar. I won. I kept my dollar. Or I don't even know if you can get a lottery ticket for $1 anymore. I have no idea how these things work.
You can.
Yeah. But I was at a restaurant just a couple days ago, and the restaurant owner was telling me how a friend of hers won $100,000 in the scratch-off.
Hey, not bad.
Yeah, well, good.
Not bad.
Good for him.
Can't win if you don't play.
Yep, there you go. My dad won $5,000.
Yeah, but how much did he pay for tickets for his whole lifetime? Because some people will buy like 10 tickets a week or whatever.
I don't know, but
what's the average Lotto player play? Do they play one ticket or is it 10?
No, I can't imagine. It's one ticket.
Well,
now.
I'm sure when they win too, the general thought process is now you're playing with house money. Right, it's not a recouping of what you've spent so far. It's now you have more money to spend because you've won, completely ignoring all the losses that you've incurred over the years.
Right. And when you say Lotto, you mean filling in the numbers versus scratchers, which is the scratch-off lottery. So there's different products that the lottery has. The state, in many cases, keeps the monopoly on running numbers, is what we used to call this back in the day, when people would shoot you over their particular corner of the map.
If you win $100,000, you've come out ahead. There's no doubt about that. If you win $5,000, that's at 10 tickets a week. That's 10 years basically of playing is what you've won back there in that case.
At that time, the lottery probably wasn't legal for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suspect
he came out ahead in that one.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that he lived longer than that, and he probably didn't stop playing.
He kept playing. Yeah, okay. All right, let's continue here. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. We go to the Free Market Penguin. He's on our Discord server. Go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Hey, you're in Virginia.
The gentleman, from Virginia. The guys a few calls ago, maybe two, was talking about colonialism, anti-colonialism, and I definitely hold anti-colonialism is a core position of my libertarianism, and not like I have my own libertarianism, but my personal libertarianism.
I think everybody does.
Beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you have to credit Murray Rothbard or anybody else. We all come to these ideas with our own moral compass, and whatever the idea is either resonates with us or it doesn't. You keep the parts you like, you throw away the parts you don't.
So I would like libertarian heroes.
Yeah, I would like to make some sense out of that guy's call by just keeping up with the topic, and I definitely think it's an important topic. And basically, I think we can understand colonialism as basically the state's kind of oppression of us as far as property is concerned, with the element of developed countries going to other lands and co-opting local rulers, which they also have states and states as we define them, there, and they certainly set up states that continued the colonialist practices through the modern and modern era.
Right. In many cases, they strengthened the existing state so that it then could be empowered to go and reach out to the far corners of the regions in the given area where the colonialist powers sort of, they sectioned off pieces of the map and said, all right, you get this area, you get that area, and that kind of thing. But in many cases, they left in control the sort of original rulers.
Yeah, drawing borders, making a military, making a bureaucracy, things that they just didn't have because those things hadn't came to that area, to their level of development. But you know,
could that be considered a good thing?
Well, it's strengthened the power of the states and people's ability to operate outside of it. Because, you know, I mean, much of the freedom humans have enjoyed has, in my opinion, come from the inability of states to effectively control them, even if they, you know, desired to.
Okay.
But the you know what those things, the core things that occurred there happened in the Western countries too. You know, I mean, there was a lot of land that was owned under different rules of property and occupancy and stuff like that in more agrarian societies, and there was a lot of collectively owned, you know, pasture and stuff like that in the agrarian societies. And when I think we can agree that it's good to demarcate land and have individual ownership or individual, you know, use of land, whether you you know, whatever you think about your specific idea of libertarian property rights. But what occurred in the Western countries and then occurred in a really egregious fashion in the you know, colonialized nations is that property ended up in the hands of those that were colluding with the state due to corruption. So people that were on the land were often pushed off the land, and that's just a fact. But
could you say that wasn't true colonialism then?
So colonialism is just that, but with the element of somebody coming in to country to, you know, from far away to impose that from a distance in order.
Why is that worse? Just out of curiosity. I mean, you know, the American,
having something imposed on you from a distance versus locally.
Right. The American Revolution was a war that apparently was fought to get rid of a king in London so that we could have a temporary king in Washington, D.C.
I would agree with you, Mark, that it is not necessarily worse from our perspective. However, from the perspective of somebody who believes in a political system, a local political system, they believe they have a say.
Somebody
in
believes in voting. They're kind of like these people that believe in that believe in the lottery, right? I mean, you know, if you play the lottery, you believe that you don't understand mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in voting, you don't understand mathematics. You have never controlled the vote on who the president is in the United States.
I was talking about a local level.
I understand.
So specifically, people who have this belief system about democracy, it's our government, we are the government, you know, this mythology that we've busted a zillion times here on Free Talk Live.
Not busted it enough.
For somebody who believes that, well, there's always going to be new people who come across the show, but for somebody who believes that mentality about, well, it's our system, I'm participating.
It's pervasive in the liberty movement, too.
So they would look more adversely towards somebody who's coming in from the outside and forcing a new system upon them. Even though from our perspective as libertarian types, we see them both as offensive because there's still two systems being forced upon us. They just, I'm answering your question, Mark. From from their perspective, it's more objectionable to have a ruler coming in from the outside that they don't see having any kind of influence over, whereas at least they get a vote on the local level and they can yell at that person.
All I'm saying is that, you know, for the audience, not for you. For the audience, it doesn't matter where your tyrant is. If your tyrant is in your hometown or your tyrant is 3,000 miles away, it doesn't matter.
Well, easier to topple the tyrant in Concord than it is in D.C.
Well, that's true. And in Keene, you know, we're in Keene, New Hampshire. We know where the city councilors live. I mean, so, you know, I'm not saying that violence should be employed. I'm completely against the use of aggressive force. But at the very least, you could argue that if you can physically reach the ruler, that ruler might be a little less likely to cross certain thresholds.
Keep them in check.
Yeah.
Well, the small minority of people in the colonies that were behind and planned the revolution, they knew what they were planning and they sold it, and they knew they wanted to found a state. And I'm not saying all their intentions were absolutely horrible. They had some of them had some good ideas, but a lot of them knew very well that they weren't, you know, it was relatively free for the time, but they knew what they were founding, and they even considered making George Washington king.
A president
they wanted a new
much,
set of rulers.
A president isn't functionally much different than a king was at the time of the English king was at the time of the Revolution. He was a chief executive. The president's a chief executive. There is a term limit now, but there wasn't at the time. You had to vote on him every 4 years. Obviously, you don't vote on a king, but do we have any evidence at this point that a king versus a president really makes you free?
Thank you for the call tonight.
Thank you.
Free Market Penguin. Appreciate it. We got a whole another hour to go here on this live Sunday edition. If you want to join us on the air, dial in toll free at 855-450-FREE like freedom, or join the Discord server, discord.lrn.fm. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll free if you want to join us here on the radio. Our number is 855-450-FREE. Live Sunday edition continuing here. 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Just hop into one of those and we will spot you in there and get you on the air with us, and you'll sound almost like you're sitting in the studio with me, Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Back to the phones, to your calls and thoughts. And then coming up, Richie, I know you had a story. If we get to it, I hope that we will, from PsyPost, which I presume stands for psychology. Study suggests mass shootings can inadvertently promote the idea of using guns to empower oneself.
I thought it was an interesting take.
So, yeah, we'll get into that if we get the chance. But to the phones first, where Kirby is on the line to start things out here this hour in Indiana, listening on YouTube. Go ahead, Kirby.
Hey, what's up, gentlemen?
Hey, Kirby.
Universal basic income. When I was a kid, they called that an allowance.
When I had an allowance, I had to work for it. I had to go and take the garbage out and do other tasks.
You've got a point, but I'm just trying to figure out where this mentality came from.
The robots are taking over.
Yeah, that's the excuse. Sorry, Kirby, just to answer that question.
Comrade Sanders, I wasn't sure, but
no, well, I mean, I'm sure he supports. I would imagine Sanders would support the proposals for universal basic income, but it's basically coming from, I would say, left-leaning futurist types who are basically they paint this picture of a world where robots are doing everything and they've taken away all the jobs from people, and so therefore people have to have some sort of way to get money in. So let's just cut them a check, is essentially the pitch that I've always heard it associated. That's
the most recent pitch, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's true. If you look at,
it's definitely not true.
Right. I can't remember the author's name, but he's one of his books called The Necronomicon. Anyway, his theory is that basically you'll have 3D printers that will make all of the things. Housing will be free just because we can make that cheaply enough, and you'll have 3D printers and people can have all the things that they want to have more or less at basically no cost.
H.P. Lovecraft?
No, that's not it.
That's the author of the Necronomicon.
Yeah, I can't remember. Exactly.
So they think we're going to this utopian Star Trek. No one has any needs world. That'll never be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's hard to say what will or won't ever be, but I tend to have the same attitude about it as you do. It seems like every time automation displaces people, they always end up finding something else to do. And so,
after a period of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, there's always people hiring, at least around here. There are other jobs. You just have to learn a new skill. You have to be willing to expand your abilities in order to continue working. So I just see people being replaced by robots in certain areas. In fact, we actually had a story tonight about a coffee-making robot that is apparently going to replace roughly 3 or 4 baristas, for one robot for every 3 or 4 people. So, I mean, that's going to make life difficult for some people, but that's not to say that they can't pop back up somewhere else. This idea that we're going to have a completely robot-run world seems pretty optimistic at this point. And either way, even if that's true, I still couldn't possibly support the idea of a universal basic income used, or at least funded through taxation or funded through the coercive force of the government, because, well, I'm a bit of a moralist on that issue, and I think it's not okay to threaten our neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing how it turns out if it's done on a voluntary basis. By the way, it was Neil Stephenson, and it was the Cryptonomicon. My fault.
Okay, gotcha. Kirby, other thoughts you want to share? Go ahead.
Other than taxation is theft, and I'm tired of being stolen from. No.
Right on. Thanks for the call tonight.
Welcome to the club,
Kirby. Although I would say taxation is extortion,
which is a form of theft, and I don't know why you make such a big deal about that.
Not as catchy on a T-shirt.
No, it's not as alliterative. That's for sure. So you can bring up whatever you want here. We go to Tom in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Tom.
Yeah, the latest from President Trump is now he's pushing for the United States to recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
What's that?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
the Golan Heights is a zone of approximately 1,200 square kilometers that was taken from Syria during the Six-Day War in 1967. Okay. Now, the United States did not recognize the annexation of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia by the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union is bad when they do bad things. But I guess Trump is saying, it's been, and that was for 50 years. And now he's been saying, well, it's been 52 years now. How about let's start recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights? And there's, something of a double standard there. And so I think they should be back to the old borders myself, but those lines on the map, they mean a lot to bureaucrats.
That's true. They do. And I imagine they mean a lot to the people. At this point, there was a great deal of upset after the Six-Day War, and in many cases, settlers, Jewish settlers, moved out into the Golan Heights, and I'm sure they want the protection of the Israeli state. It's hard for me to really care that Syria lost land when it was fighting a war against Israel. So they lost. That's kind of what happens in wars, is sometimes you lose land, especially land directly adjacent to the person you're trying to kill. So
what about the United States annexing Hawaii?
I think that was a bad move. I think that the Hawaiians should have been free to do what they want, but they had a pretty tyrannical state in there in that place too.
Yeah, well, pretty much everybody has a tyrannical state. In the United States, the drinking age is 21. So, there's a total tyranny, and you got the United States government using gun-toting goons in bulletproof vests to intimidate you and me into paying taxes to buy weapons to give to Israel, whether we like it or not. So, that's
it's frustrating.
That's evil and wicked. So I just wanted to bring up that double standard there. They don't recognize when the Soviet Union annexed those three countries,
right,
and then they're pushing to recognize the annexation of the Golan Heights into the state of Israel.
Thanks for the call tonight, Tom. I appreciate the thoughts. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Richie, you are from Hawaii.
I am.
Any thoughts on Hawaii's statehood, forced statehood?
So my wife is part Hawaiian, like ethnically.
Mm-hmm.
And so we moved here, and I told her it might be interesting when people ask where we're from to say we're from the illegally occupied kingdom of Hawaii. I have no skin in that game, one way or the other. Like I'm not.
You weren't born there, or
I was born there, but I'm not native.
Okay.
I don't have any Hawaiian blood. And the sovereignty movement that exists in Hawaii now to take back the Hawaiian kingdom,
right? Secessionists,
sure. They also want to form their own government.
Of course they do.
And a lot of the infighting between each secessionist group is who's going to be in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I can't even get behind that.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah. I tend to feel similarly about the Hawaiian independence movement. I think that they probably should have some level of independence. But honestly, if they got it, they would probably be worse off. The United States...
they're already pretty socialist leaning over there, right? Is that what you're saying?
The United States benefits them.
It's blue.
For sure. Let's continue here. We've got David.
Yeah, Republicans, the third party in Hawaii.
David is in New Mexico listening on TuneIn. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, you're talking about the Stolen Heights?
Stolen Heights.
Okay.
Well, there are three things that I didn't hear you mention, and I'm no expert on this. This is just things that I hear. One, I believe that Israel was attacked is the conflict during which they took that land, which is the reverse of the Russian-Lithuanian thing. And then another mitigating or aggravating fact is I believe that it's settled international law that when territory occupied as a result of armed conflict, that it's against international law to send civilians in to occupy that gained territory until whatever is settled is settled.
I don't know if they sent civilians in.
Stand by. We'll continue here.
Settlers.
This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything that you want. We're here on this live Sunday edition of the program. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. I want to say thanks to Nick, who is a silver amplifier. That means Nick is sending in $5 a month via either PayPal, credit card, or Bitcoin BTC. You get to decide how to join up, but we really appreciate it when you do, because it's only a couple hundred folks. I don't think we even have 200. It's like 196 or 197 of our listeners who are so dedicated, and we appreciate their support. They're willing to send us $5 a month. Now, some do more than that. There's the gold level at $10 a month, and then there's platinum for $25. There's a handful of those folks, and we certainly appreciate everybody at every level of the AMP program. So you get some cool perks and some bonuses as a result of being an amplifier. Plus, you can learn how we're spending the money over at amp.freetalklive.com. That's ampamp.freetalklive.com.
It's also worth pointing out that on the Facebook group where I interact with the amplifiers, I put up polls all the time, regularly there, where you can talk about, you can sort of have your input on how Free Talk Live is run. To some extent, you guys are like...
Well, if you aren't on Facebook, we also have the Discord group that also includes amplifiers. So there's special Discord channels that are only for supporters.
Yeah, you get your voice heard there, too.
Correct. Because not everybody's on Facebook.
It's true.
But if you want to join the AMP program, please go to amp.freetalklive.com, and we would really appreciate it. It makes a big difference for us when you do that. That's amp.freetalklive.com. As we continue here, Ian, Ritchie, and Mark in the studio, we go back to David in New Mexico. You're back on Free Talk Live. David, what were you calling about tonight? Go ahead.
Well, you started talking about that thing, so I'm talking about that. But speaking of putting up polls, Mark, that ad you guys run, always looking for that edge during those intimate moments.
That's one of our network advertisements. I don't think that's one of our sponsors directly.
Free Talk Live tries really hard not to have any ads that add to intimacy or give
hard, apparently.
Give force to your intimacy or whatever it is that they're talking about.
But, just to clarify, when you're listening to this show, whether you're listening on the radio or you're listening online,
he wants to tell a joke.
I know, we're going to get to it.
Let him nail the joke.
I want to clarify that not every advertiser you hear is one of our advertisers. Meaning we don't even know half the time what some of the ads are that are airing during our commercial break. So if you're on a local station, you may be hearing some local advertising that we don't know what that is. And then during what we call the network breaks, then some from our Genesis Communications Network, which is our syndicate, they sell ads during our show. Sometimes we'll hear those, so I've heard the one that you're talking about.
Yes.
But anyway, it's not one of ours. Go ahead.
Please, tell the joke.
Yeah, so I just thought it might be one of yours since they named Mark Edge by name, so I thought maybe it was.
Oh, really? Wait, what are they saying about you, Mark?
Give you the edge during those intimate moments. I do like that. Yeah, if just to be clear, to back up what Ian's saying here, if we endorse it, you will hear our voices in it. So, yeah, but that's funny. I'm down. Thank you.
All right, just don't want to see you behind me in the bedroom, that's all.
Thanks for the call, David. Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. All right. I don't think we started. Yeah, we haven't started your psychology-related post, and I think we wrapped up the conversation
we did.
On your topic, Mark. So it's just been wall-to-wall phone calls since then. So let's get back into the show prep. We've been talking a lot about New Zealand over the last week or so since the horrific mass shooting occurred late last week. It has stayed in the news. It has, and it has not been good news that's been in the news. I'm sure some people are glad to see that they're going to ban more guns in New Zealand. Of course, we know that's not going to stop psychopaths. And what we've seen them doing most recently is actually rounding up innocent, peaceful people who happen to have a copy of the video of the shooting. They've been arresting. In this case, we saw at least 2 cases. One person who's 22, another person 18, arrested. Now they've made the manifesto a banned product as well. So not only is the video of the shooting illegal in New Zealand to possess and to share, but having the 74-page manifesto is also illegal in New Zealand. So it's just been an unending avalanche of just terrible news to follow up, ultimately, a terrible incident. They're not making things better for the people of New Zealand. That's
I was thinking about a way to get around the whole manifesto ban, kind of like when O.J. wrote that book, If I Did It. Like, I wonder if you like wrote the manifesto in a form where it was like, if he was thinking this is what he would have written.
Anything, yes, it could still be banned because my understanding of and I don't have the name of the act in front of me, but there was like a 1993 communications prohibition there.
Sounds right. It's pretty close.
It was longer. There were several words in that.
The government loves to have these things and then turn them into acronyms. Yeah. Kapow!
Nah, there wasn't an acronym for this one, I don't think.
I'm just kidding.
But you're right. They do love that. And the thing basically allows the government censorship office to determine whether or not a thing is injurious to the public good. Okay. And so if it's considered objectionable, it is banned. And so even an "if I did it" kind of writing of, here's
the manifesto.
Here's all the terrible things I would have said is still going to be enough for them to say, well, this is inappropriate for New Zealand and therefore 14 years in prison is what you will face if you possess it. They are not very nice with their censorship over there.
It doesn't seem to be.
No.
But, how do you get that information out to the public then for those who are
just tell them not to share it.
Okay.
So you would then, if you want to have a thing that's illegal in New Zealand, keep your mouth shut. Basically treat the manifesto as though it were a marijuana farm or something like that. Like you don't want to tell one person because every one person you tell, you're basically 90% closer to getting arrested.
Sure. I think most human beings are capable of reading the manifesto and not necessarily agreeing with everything that's written, but just reading it as historical literature at that point.
This is what a psychopath thinks.
Sure. And I wouldn't want to see that censored.
Yeah, people read books about serial killers all the time. I mean, am I to presume that they're serial killers?
No, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And are fictionalized representations of serial killers also banned in New Zealand? I suspect not. Now, I mean, they have banned some crazy stuff over there. There's no doubt about it. T-shirts, CDs, movies, and video games. I mean, they'll ban anything. But I suspect you can probably still watch Hannibal Lecter movies in New Zealand. So it's completely inconsistent and completely political. That's what's going on here. So you've got a related story to New Zealand, and share that with us.
Maybe not related to New Zealand generally, but just related to what's going on. So studies suggest mass shootings can inadvertently promote the idea of using guns to empower oneself. People who feel disempowered tend to feel more willing to shoot someone when mass shootings loom large in their mind, according to new research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. The findings provide some initial evidence that mass shootings can produce contagion-like effects. I am interested in the psychology of seemingly random or senseless acts of aggression and violence. I do not think such actions are as random or senseless as they appear, says study author Pontus Lander, an associate professor of psychology at the University of Groningen and director of the Center for Psychological Gun Research.
Now, where is Groningen?
I don't know, but the guy sounds sort of Norwegian.
Yeah, it does sound like it's European of some sort. Germany, maybe. I don't know. We're going to continue.
I will double check.
Yeah, we're going to continue this story here. Your calls and thoughts also welcome. Basically suggesting that one person's action may create copycats. Is that the idea here?
Not necessarily copycats, just that people feel empowered to defend themselves.
Oh, and defend themselves would be included. All right, we'll continue. It is Free Talk Live. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Free Talk Live. You dial in toll free to join us here on this live Sunday edition. The number is 855-450-FREE. Like freedom, that's 855-450-3733. We were just talking in the studio with our studio audience that we happen to have here tonight.
Studio
One guy showed up.
And we're talking about open carrying in New Hampshire, open carrying guns, and that is something you can do here as long as you're not prohibited by, let's say, being a felon or something like that. You can open carry a gun without having a permission slip. In fact, in New Hampshire, you can even concealed carry without having a permission slip, although I don't know if the Democrats are going to try to repeal that this year. Whether they'll be successful at it is another question. But it's a pretty gun-friendly place generally in New Hampshire. Yeah. Even a lot of the Democrats own guns in New Hampshire, from what I understand. They grew up with them here.
Get your gun show gun now, though, just in case they require registration again.
And one of the places you can absolutely open carry is Rogers Campground, the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. That's where we're going to be June 13th until you don't want to be there in January. June 13th.
You'll be the only one.
Yeah. Yeah, they closed the campground down. You can't even camp there at all. Even if you give them money, they won't let you do it. June 13th through the 18th. At ForkFest 2019. It's going to be the third year of ForkFest. It's a decentralized camping event where you can come out and just hang out with other voluntarists and libertarians and liberty-loving anarchists, or you can create something for those people to do. So if you want to throw a party, go ahead, right ahead. If you want to put on a poker game or a tournament or something like that, by all means.
You want to make money doing it?
You can. I don't know if whether you want to do it legally or not, that's a whole other question. Most people tend to ignore whatever the regulations are. So if they set up a food tent, they're not asking government permission to do that. So I would recommend not asking permission. But you decide how to handle it. It's up to you. There's nobody who's in charge. There's no board of directors. There's no organizer, which means there's no ticket price. So really all you got to do is lock down your campsite or RV site or even a motel room with the folks over at Rogers Campground. And the link that you need to do that is over at forkfest.party. That is a unofficial site because nothing's official when it comes to ForkFest. That's forkfest.party, and that'll also link you over to the Telegram chat room and the ForkFest forum, where Forkfesters and would-be Forkfesters are talking about the things that they're planning and cooking up and working together with others on. I'm looking forward to it. It was great last year. It was super small, obviously, the first year, and we don't know how it's going to do this year compared to last year because, well, we don't have any official numbers because there are no tickets. So once again, go to ForkFest.
It's a blast, though.
Party. But we will be there, so we'll look forward to seeing you there.
As Intergalactic Space King, I am handing out food service registration licenses.
Really? Yeah. What are you charging for?
Just a bowl of whatever it is you're making.
That's fair.
That's the kind of guy I am.
Are you going to give like an actual nice certified piece of paper, or what's your plan there?
It depends on if people contact me ahead of time and let me know that they want my certification license, and I'll bring some. Yeah.
Are you going to walk around wearing the crown?
I have the crown. I have several crowns.
I want to see him approach food vendors and try to pitch trading this piece of paper for their food.
I trade paper for food all the time. What are you talking about?
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Here's this greenback.
Let's continue here. Richie, you've got this story from one of the psychology websites. I forget what it was.
Scipost.org.
Let's continue this piece because it's about the use of a gun in a mass shooting, possibly encouraging?
Surrounding a mass shooting. It's basically the psychology of the individual and his proclivity to use a firearm surrounding a mass shooting.
All right, tell me more.
Okay. So this particular study on mass shootings pertains to the spreading of violent ideas. We tested whether specific individuals, namely those who are searching for their own means of personal empowerment, were the most likely to express more violent ideas in response to mass shootings. In 4 separate studies of 2,400.
So this doesn't sound like it has anything to do with self-defense. This sounds like they're talking about the mass shootings are ginning up more mass shooters. They're encouraging more people through.
It does sound like copycats.
That's what I'm hearing so far. But
well, let me get through this paragraph then, because here we go. In 4 separate studies of 2,442 U.S. gun owners, the research found evidence that a sense of disempowerment was positively associated with willingness to shoot a home intruder or engage in vigilantism. Disempowered participants agreed with the statements such as, "Not a lot is done for people like me in America, and if I compare myself against other Americans, my group is worse off." In one study, the researchers experimentally manipulated a sense of disempowerment by giving some participants a cognitive test that was impossible to solve correctly. The research was conducted between June 2016 and November 2017 in the wake of the 2016 Orlando nightclub mass shooting, the 2017 Las Vegas Strip mass shooting, and the 2017 Texas church mass shooting.
So, like I would say that it was probably a bad day to attempt to sell Encyclopedia Britannica door to door if you were an Arab encyclopedia salesman on September 11, 2001. And what they're saying is that that in those circumstances, people were more likely to use violence to solve problems in the case of a home invasion or something like that. Not to say that Arab encyclopedia salesmen even existed in 2001, but that they would do any kind of home invasion. I'm just saying that, do people's psychology change around mass shootings that are publicized in the news? Seems like it.
Let's hear some more about this.
The link between disempowerment and assertive gun use was particularly strong among participants who felt mass shootings were an imminent threat. The findings suggest that mass shootings can inadvertently promote the idea of using guns to empower oneself. In this case, assertive gun use was aimed at protecting oneself or others.
Okay. So that would be in a defensive.
Right. But you get the idea of mass shootings in your head. You see that it's effective, right, in empowering the individual, and therefore you are more likely to use that method to empower yourself should the need arise.
I'm not going to call this positive. I'm going to call it interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I never made the
No, you did not.
I said interesting surrounding the events that have recently occurred.
You did.
Okay. Where was I? Yep. Similar psychological phenomena could be at play among those less lawful tendencies. Merely thinking about a threatening figure may suffice for us to be influenced by them. Although this sounds disturbing in the context of mass shootings, it is normal for human beings to internalize and imitate what we see in the world. If a troubling psychological phenomenon is rooted in an otherwise normal mental process, it gives us a starting point for figuring out how to prevent it, Leander told SciPost. The study, like all research, includes some limitations. So here we go on that. As we note in the paper, these results should not be overstated. We only took the first step of testing for increases in violent ideas, but many additional factors would be involved for violent ideas to translate into behavior, Leander explained. Our findings should be considered preliminary. I would like to establish clearer causality going forward, but that will require more resources than we have available. Why someone decides to commit a mass shooting is influenced by a host of factors, and researchers have only begun to scratch the surface. If we want to end the spread of violence, we must develop theories that can explain the psychological appeal of such behavior.
I think they're putting way too much thought into this. I mean, there's the violence is not going to end because psychopaths are not going to stop being born.
Sure.
I mean, these people are people who don't have empathy for other human beings, and so therefore exterminating them means nothing to these people.
But the psychology behind it, my understanding of the article, is less so about the mass shooter and more about how to understand why an individual would resort to violence in a situation where they're feeling less empowered, right? If like they said, they put imposing figures or complex problems that can't be solved to lower the empowerment feeling that the individual has, and when the individual is feeling less empowered,
they're more likely
to use violence to do something.
Well,
whatever that may be.
And as you said, they could be defensive somethings that the person is doing, or maybe not.
Well, when a home intruder breaks in your house, you feel very disempowered at the moment.
And so you want to use a gun to even the odds if you're feeling disempowered.
You would think.
You've had instances where home intruders have come to your house and you haven't shot them. As a matter of fact, you've sort of made them coffee and made them feel at home, right?
That's a weird thing.
That only happened once. And no, I didn't make him coffee.
How many times have you had home invaders? How many times have you made them coffee?
Well, actually, I've had more than one home invader. There was the FBI as well, and I didn't shoot them either. So I guess both times, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't make them coffee.
Non-governmental home invaders, but all right.
Yeah,
I seen a story a while ago where the dude randomly stumbled in drunk, fell asleep on the couch. Right, and it wasn't his house, and then the homeowner helped him out and got him a cab.
Yeah, that's basically what happened in my case. More coming up here in moments. The toll-free number if you want to join us on the question of violence and what increases its likelihood. This is Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Moments remain, enough time for you. If you want to join us here, dial in now. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Also, don't forget, you can watch us on Twitch over at twitch.lrn.fm. Make sure that you follow our Twitch channel, because it doesn't just feature Free Talk Live. It also has some of the other great shows from LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, like Call to Freedom on weekdays. Just before Free Talk Live, they start at 4 o'clock Eastern, and then there's also Questioning Authority on Saturday nights, and it sounds like he might start doing Thursday nights as well, plus the occasional Freer Talk Live, which is our Twitch-only after show that we do usually on a weekly basis, which we had a blast with that on Friday night.
Yeah, Ian's scheduled it now, so I don't get to be on anymore.
We can do another one if you want to do one, Mark. That's up to you. I mean, we can do those things anytime anybody wants to. So please follow our Twitch channel over at twitch.lrn.fm, and if you want to take it to the next level of you want to make this activism, then open up a browser tab and load up twitch.lrn.fm and just leave that tab open 24/7. If you've got a computer that runs around the clock, leave that tab open constantly, whether you're there or not. Now, they're going to probably, they've got some sort of algorithm that detects whether or not you're actually at the computer. So just leaving the tab open doesn't contribute to our viewer count. But if you're at the computer and we're there, then we should be able to get you as a viewer. And if we can get to 75 viewers over an entire month, basically an average of 75, then we might get to the Twitch partner level,
which would be
viewer nice.
Total views that's on Twitch here. So
that's the cumulative total.
Almost 90,000 views
in the last year or year and 2 months.
Okay,
basically.
some number like that. All right.
Yeah.
Find one of those mouse jiggler programs as well that makes it.
I'm not looking to cheat. Because if you want to cheat this thing, you can go and pay $50 to some Chinese website where they'll give you 50 viewers for an entire, or like 100 viewers or something for a whole month. But that's not what I want to do. If we can't do this through good old fashioned promotion of it, we don't deserve the upgrade. And there's no guarantee that even if you get to the 75 view count, that's not an automatic upgrade. They then will review your account and they'll look, are people interacting in the chat room? Well, if you've got a bunch of robots watching, people are not going to be interacting in the chat room, so they're not going to see much activity there. They're looking for other indicators, I think, to suggest that there's a real community behind this show. And so if we can get a bunch of people to join the channel at twitch.lrn.fm and leave it open, it'll at the very least have them there so they're more likely to see us. That way they don't have to think about turning it on. It'll always be there on their computer. So if you want to be an activist, that's an easy way to do it, because the more views we can get concurrently, the higher that puts our ranking on the Twitch sort of leaderboard, if you will. And then so the higher we're ranked, the more people that have never seen us before are going to sample us for the first time, which means more people finding the ideas of freedom. So again, this is a way for you to actually help us spread these ideas, and just all you got to do is open a browser tab, twitch.lrn.fm.
You can go there stream more video game content too then.
We could, and maybe we will, but of course, if we're streaming stuff that doesn't have a lot of views, then that could pull our view count down.
All right.
So anyway, the idea is let's just get people to open this tab, and then hopefully that'll increase. And I have seen, by the way, an increase in the last week. It's been marginal, it's been mild, but there has been an increase. Like we used to average 15 to 25 typical, and I'd say we're more like 20 to 30. So we might have gotten an extra handful. Folks, you were going to say something, Mark?
I just love this. The latest subscriber's name here is Packet Sniffer 420.
Yeah, that's a great name. So thanks for that. And we're not asking for subscriptions, but thank you for everybody who's subscribed.
Thank you for everybody who's just tuned in, because our numbers have jumped up.
Yeah, thanks for that. All right, so let's continue with your calls and thoughts. Clayton is in Norville. I don't know where that is. Clayton, where is Norville?
It's Creighton from Louisville.
Crichton from Louisville. Okay, very good. Oh, we know where
there's an accent.
Yeah. Oh, well, either there's an accent or a board op who couldn't hear it. Anyway, go ahead, Crichton.
Yeah, I wanted to call in. It's been a long time since I've called in.
Yeah.
But I was listening to the Daily Digest the other night, and I heard Mark make a comment in passing that just made me tense up because it's one of these falsehoods that is dangerous.
Okay, all right.
And I'm talking about the belief that student loans are harmless. And he made the comment along the lines that you can just not pay it because there really isn't anything backing it. And the problem with that is that a student loan is the only debt in our country that you cannot get rid of.
Yes, as far as bankruptcy goes. I think what I said was something to the effect of they can take your house in the sense of the economic collapse of 2000 and the real estate collapsed in like 2005, and then the economy started going in 2006, and then 2008. It just kept going there for the Great Recession, as it's known, was largely perpetuated by people not being able to pay their mortgage, and they could come in and take their house, and in many cases they did. But they can't really do anything to you if you don't if they can't take your education away from you. I mean, lots of people aren't paying their student loans currently, and I see a hand raised here in the studio. I mean, it just keeps happening. I'm not trying to say that yes, you're absolutely right. Student loans cannot be gotten rid of due to bankruptcy.
Oh, but it's worse than that.
Go ahead.
It's one of the worst things that we can get. We can get. They're patient. Don't get me wrong. But the companies are patient because they know they will win in the end. If you die young and broke, that is the only way you get out of paying it.
Yeah.
If you die young and you're a co-signer on your house with your wife, they put a lien on the house.
Yeah. I bet they would.
They can take your tax return. They can take your pension. If your parents co-sign for it with you, they can take daddy's pension.
Damn.
It is egregious.
I do my best not to have anything in my name.
Bitcoin is a good choice, though.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? What do you think? People who already, because the best advice is if you're not going to go to school for some kind of STEM degree, you're not going to be an engineer, or a doctor, or a lawyer. There may be a few other degrees out there that are worth getting a few other degrees that might actually get you a job. No, I do not think college professor is a good choice because there's lots of those. The market's flooded right now. What do you recommend if you if you can no longer follow the advice of don't get a degree unless you can use that degree? What do you recommend people do?
As far as getting an education?
No. What I'm saying is the people that already got the education, they're already behind the eight ball $100,000, and they're in this new form of serfdom that's been created for them.
The only thing that they could really do is make sure that as far as public accounts go, that they really don't have anything.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, gold in your own possession, no bank account. I mean, if they can see it, they can take it. They have the full force of the U.S. government behind them. That's why, if you think about it, that's the only reason that a lender is willing to lend at a low rate to a young adult with no work history and no credit history.
Right. I mean, these 18-year-olds really aren't qualified. Qualified to do much. We don't think they're qualified to choose to buy a fifth of Jack Daniels.
Well, I think so, but the government doesn't.
The government claims you are not qualified to buy a fifth of Jack Daniels, but you are qualified to take on $100,000 in debt that cannot be written off.
If anything will drive you to drink, that's it.
Right?
Well,
it's crazy.
It's snowballing too, because there are studies and articles coming out again that the younger generation isn't buying large assets like homes
because they can't afford it,
mostly because their student loan debt is so high that they can't take on the additional
right.
payments.
They've been sold this bull crap that's handed to them by the government bureaucrats and teachers that says that you got to go get an education because people who have an education make more money. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you go get yourself a communications degree or a liberal arts degree or whatever it is, all you're going to do is have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But start
Would you
with 10.
like fries with that?
Yeah. I mean, can you tell me what your? I mean, I don't want to ask you your private business, but what is?
I have an MBA from Gonzaga University.
Okay. How much did it cost you?
Probably close to $100,000 overall.
Yeah.
Because I think tuition at the time was like $16,000 for the first 4 years, and then I went to grad school after that, which was about the same price for grad school for the extra.
Wow, they
extra
got
degree.
you.
Yeah, they did.
And the MBA, I mean, you know,
did it help you get the job you currently have?
No, okay. It probably did because it looks good on a resume,
right?
But the lines that I keep getting from family members is, I wish you would do something where you can use your degree. Like, well, I can do anything with the degree. That's part of the problem. It's so generalized that it looks good on a resume, and I'm qualified to do a lot, but I don't have a specific focus on anything. And I've done a lot over the years, so I have a lot of experience in a vast number of industries. Just none of them well paid enough to make all those additional payments along with the student loan.
Yeah, I would have hoped that an MBA would have been one of those degrees that would have been marketable, but apparently not.
And they told me that in college.
Yeah,
they said it was right around the. I graduated with the MBA in 2005. And my professor said, "Stay in school as long as you can because there's not going to be anything for you when you graduate."
Gosh,
that's terrible advice. Keep spending in school because there's nothing for you afterwards. We'll see you tomorrow. Online in the meantime, you can join us at freetalklive.com. If you didn't get on tonight, call us tomorrow. We'll get you then. LRN.FM now has a Discord. Discord is a free text and voice chat platform, and we now have our own server with a bunch of channels at discord.lrn.fm. You can join other listeners as they chat about various things during our live shows, or anytime, day or night. Discord software is available cross-platform, so you can have it on whatever device you want and take your chats anywhere. Join our Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm.